Good evening, and thank you, Nancy. Thank you very, very much for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it immensely. It is such an incredible honor to be with all of you tonight to accept the 2020 Gerda Haas Award for Excellence in Human Rights, Education, and Leadership. I am truly humbled. I cannot thank you enough. I'm truly humbled. To the Holocaust Human Rights Center Board of Directors, the Executive Director, which is now Secretary of State, Shanna Bellows, all the extraordinary staff, along with the center's partners and supporters and sponsors, to the amazing speakers, with special acknowledgement to the wise words of Chief Sabatis, to my family who is attending tonight, of which I draw all my strength, and to each of you that have made tonight possible. As you can see, I thank you very, very much. So beginning with the summer seminar on teaching the Holocaust in Maine schools back in 1984 at Bowdoin College, which led to the founding of the Holocaust Human Rights Center 1 year later, to the support provided to teachers and librarians all across this state, and the countless lives that have been touched, educated, impacted, and saved. I know you join me in a heartfelt thank you to Gerda Haas. Gerda, we are all grateful for your dedication to lifelong learning and to the dignity and rights of all human beings. Thank you, Gerda. So Gerda had a wise and thoughtful perspective on the importance of human rights education. And I want to share her words with you now because I believe they are so profound. She said, quote, "The only thing we possess that our forefathers did not is the wisdom of the past. This we must use as our guide for shaping the present and creating a better future. This is why it is so important to share the wisdom of the past, to teach it in our schools, and to pass it on." I am fortunate, as I have known the power of this wisdom, the power of knowing history, in both my personal and professional life. It was passed on to me as a young child through my family. My parents were determined for me and my sisters to know our own history as a way to take the pride in who we were as a people, African Americans, and our rich cultural heritage in Maine, to take that pride with us everywhere we went. This knowing of one's history, they believed, was a form of armor in a world that was steeped in negative stereotypes and messages that would constantly come before us. I came to depend on this knowledge of my own history to feel safe and whole and human in the world. I have also used this wisdom in my professional life, in not only fighting against discrimination and prejudice, hate and fear, but for the documentation, the preservation, and the inclusion of the African American experience in the telling and teaching of America's true and complete history. As Gerda says, this wisdom of the past, it must be used as our guide for shaping the present and for ensuring a better future. So several years ago, I was honored to be part of a Holocaust Human Rights Center initiative to work with Maine educators on teaching the history of slavery in Maine, its legacy, and how to engage students on the subject matter. It was an incredible experience. As a ninth generation Mainer, I heard scholars for the very first time say out loud, that slavery existed on this soil, in this state, and that we must confront this truth or deny another generation of learners the opportunity to think critically and to use that knowledge to fight for a world in which we do not repeat this horror. I heard them say it out loud for the first time in my life, and it changed me forever. The lesson I walked away with that day was that I must continue to examine the silences in what we teach as history and the reasons for them in every aspect of what I do, and that knowledge is only powerful if it is informed by the truth. That experience and the network it created has laid the foundation for work I have brought forth during my tenure in the legislature to mandate the teaching of the history and culture of African Americans in Maine schools, along with the teaching of the Holocaust. In a 50-state survey of young adults conducted by the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany, 68% of those surveyed in Maine couldn't meet all three of the minimum standards of Holocaust education. 68% of our young people could not meet those standards. The standards of having definitely heard of the Holocaust, of being able to name at least one concentration camp or ghetto, and in knowing that over 6 million Jews had been killed. That placed our state fourth in the nation, and it suggests that if we do not heed Gerda's advice, then this period of history could well become completely forgotten. This is troubling news for sure, but equally as concerning is the lack of any indicator in our state about the knowledge of the African American experience and the history of race and racism throughout our public education system. Not one indicator, not one survey that can inform us of their knowledge. That's why I am so proud to have worked with other legislators, including Senator Bellows, on bills that encourage the teaching of genocide, the Holocaust, and the African American history, legislation that I will bring back to reintroduce this session. I actually will issue a call to action tonight in the spirit of Gerda, because we need you in this effort to make sure that, as Chief Sabata said, our complete history is taught in our schools. I ask you to join me in that effort, as education is at the very heart of building an anti-racist future. Just this past year, as the world mourned the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and too many other brown and Black and Indigenous people to name, in my grief, I was able to find some comfort in the work of Vision 2020. As you have heard, this work is being done in collaboration with Maine tribal population, the African American community, and diverse community members throughout the state to counter the bicentennial celebrations, the narratives, and historical accounts that missed recognizing generations of people of color who were sacrificed and contributed and helped to shape our great state. Vision 2020, this work, the stories of our lives, as told either through a museum exhibit or in units of study in our classrooms, is human rights education. That's the message, that's the legacy of Gerda. These stories of our lives, this is human rights education. And if you couple that together, these stories with your stories and other stories, then it allows us to choose to actually design a better pathway forward. It allows us to be brave. It allows us to create an equitable and free and peaceful future for all. So in Gerda's own words, the future is ours. And I must tell you again, I am deeply, deeply humbled to receive this honor in her name. Let's be brave. Thank you.